The movie opens with a quick narration. The year is 2157, and humanity is thriving, and medical advancements have cured diseases and made the human body much stronger and more resilient. Humanity has also started exploring other galaxies and colonizing planets. We see an explorer named Maxim traveling through space. He is talking to his grandmother about his school when suddenly an asteroid hits his spaceship and takes out one of his engines. Maxim is then forced to crash land to a nearby unknown planet. Maxim gets out of his spaceship before it fully explodes. He looks around and sees nothing. He then decides to walk inland in hopes of finding a civilization that will let him use their communication system so he can contact Earth and get help. He walks until nighttime and finally finds a small camp, but he gets ambushed by the camper, and he is brought to a military camp. Maxim explains to them about his situation, but they don't believe him, so they put a helmet on him that can project what he thinks. They don't find much from that information, so the corporal decides to send Maxim with Soldier Guy to the capital. As they are going to the capital, a battle tower explodes next to them and lands on their truck, almost killing them. Maxim is strong, so he manages to save Guy from the wreckage and they both survive the attack. Guy explains that the rebels, who the government calls the Degenerates, are responsible for the attack. The two guys reach the capital later that day. In the capital, the head of the Special Research Department, known as Nomad, orders Fank to capture Maxim and bring him. Fank takes Maxim from the police department and starts driving him to the Special Research Department, but on their way, Fank has a seizure, and while soldiers try to save him, Maxim manages to escape. Later that night, a secretive group called the Unknown Fathers gather for a meeting. The Unknown Fathers are composed of high officials in the government. Their goal is to consolidate power by using a special transmitter that releases radiation that makes people fall for their propaganda easily. We see this transmitter affecting some people more than others, and people who are highly affected, like Fank and Sage, hide it from the government. At the end of their meeting, the chief, who is the leader of the group, executes one member for failing a mission. This shows us the group is ruthless and that they won't stop at nothing to accomplish their goals. Meanwhile, Maxim goes to a local restaurant. He's greeted by a waitress named Rada, and the two quickly hit it off. He tells her about Earth and tries to learn more about this planet. He doesn't get any helpful information about the planet's location or where he could find a communication center, but he learns Rada is actually Guy's sister. Since he doesn't have a place to stay, Rada invites him to stay with her, and while they are walking home, they get ambushed by a street gang, which Maxim easily takes out. Later that night, Guy arrives at Rada's home. While Guy and Rada are watching a movie, Maxim starts asking them questions about their planet. Rada and Guy believe that they live in a hollow planet, and believe that there is no such thing as sky or space. Guy also tells him that the Unknown Fathers are the saviors of the nation, and that they built the giant defense towers, which are actually the radiation transmitters, to protect the nation from the enemies. After hearing their answers, Maxim realizes that the government is lying to their citizens. And later that night, he talks to Rada in private, and tries to explain to her about how he landed on her planet, but she doesn't fully believe him. The next day, Guy takes Maxim to the military camp and recommends him to his boss. Maxim is interested to see the inner workings of this government, so agrees to join the military. He is then put through physical tests, and he passes all the tests easily, which impresses Captain Chacho. In the next few days, Maxim trains at day and spends his free time with Rada. He tells her stories about Earth, and the two fall for each other pretty quick. A few days later, Maxim is going on his first mission. He joins a team led by Chacho to capture rebels. The military identify the rebels with the seizures. Degenerates react to the transmitters with seizures. The military break into a home where rebels are staying at. The rebels try to fight back, but they are quickly overpowered and captured. One rebel then tries to shoot Chacho, but Maxim moves him out of the way and saves his life. Later, Maxim attends the interrogation of the rebels, and he is shocked to see how inhumanely they are treated. The rebels are tortured and made to confess that they are terrorists. Even though most of them were just normal people, they are then sentenced to a long prison time or execution based on the false confessions. Maxim is horrified by what he is seeing and realizes the government is also lying about the rebels. Later that day, Guy and Maxim are summoned to Chacho's office. Maxim is told he is going to get promoted, but before that he must complete one task. He is then taken to the woods and given a gun. Then two prisoners who was caught earlier that day and sentenced to death is brought to him. Maxim is then told to execute them, but he releases them and tells Chacho that he doesn't believe they are actual terrorists. He also says that the government have been lying and that the planet is not hallowed. He says they are living in a normal planet, just like Earth, and that they can be like Earth if they weren't oppressed. This makes Chacho angry though, and he shoots Maxim multiple times on the stomach and leaves him for dead. Meanwhile, the unknown fathers meet up again to discuss their next moves. They are worried about neighboring nations teaming up. Sage recommends they destroy them before they get strong and comes up with a plan for a surprise attack. The group then votes on the plan, which passes with only one person disagreeing. Then, the chief orders them to get ready for war. That night, Maxim, whose wounds have fully healed, goes to meet up with the rebels. He explains to them, because of the advancements made in Earth, that he is able to heat very fast. The rebels struggle to fully believe him, but they can see the bullet marks on his body, so they decide to tell him everything they know. Maxim learns the unknown fathers are corrupt officials who are brainwashing people so they can stay in power. They tell him the country is falling apart and people are living in poverty, but because of the radiation towers, the unknown fathers are able to manipulate the population into worrying about terrorism that doesn't exist. The transmission is not noticed by most people, but the degenerates react heavily to it, and they are the only ones that are not affected by its brainwashing powers. This is why they are able to go against the government, and they plan to take out all the towers one by one and free the people. The transmitters are activated twice a day, and the rebel group, which now consists of Maxim, decides to attack the nearest one before the next activation. The group attack the tower station later that night, and using the distraction Maxim manages to sneak in the tower and plant a bomb. The rebels then try to run out, but most of them die. The bomb then blows up, destroying the transmitter, and Maxim manages to make it out with only a few people. The next day, Maxim returns to Rada's home and tells her and Guy about the transmitters and what the unknown fathers are doing, but since Guy is still brainwashed, he doesn't believe him. He argues that the rebels are terrorists and that the unknown fathers are saviors of the nation, and the two get into a massive argument that goes nowhere. Guy sees he can't convince Maxim, but he doesn't want him to be captured though, so he tells him and Rada to leave the nation and live in the mountains, but at that moment, soldiers break into Rada's home and arrest Maxim. He is then brought into prison, and he is put in the same cell with other captured rebels. In there, he meets with rebel leader Zeph. He informs him about the attack on the transmitters and how most of them died in that mission. Meanwhile, Nomad and Sage meet in secret. Since Maxim is now in prison, Sage has jurisdiction over him, and Nomad asks him to hand Maxim over. Sage then asks Nomad to delay the construction of the new, more precise and strong transmitters. This shows us, although the chief doesn't know Sage is a degenerate, Nomad knows. The two then make a deal. Later that day, Max, Zeph, and one other inmate are sent on a dangerous work. They are ordered to clear the remaining war robots in the southern border. They first move through a bamboo forest and take out the robots there. They come close to death, but Maxim is very elite at shooting, and he manages to take them out. Meanwhile, Sage learns Maxim is immune to the transmitter, and he decides to break his deal with Nomad, and orders his men to bring Maxim directly to him. That night, while exploring, Zeph accidentally falls into a hole. They have discovered an old military base and start looking around. Maxim finds a telescope that shows him the land beyond the border, and he is mesmerized. Suddenly, the group gets attacked by mutants. The mutants are a hybrid of humans and animals. Zeph almost gets killed by the mutant, but Maxim manages to outmuscle it and knocks it out. Maxim then calms down the mutant before releasing it. He realizes the mutants only attack out of fear, so after showing him he is not a threat, he lets the mutant loose. The next morning, the prisoners are still on duty. As they go further south, they start talking about what the rebels' plan should be. Zeph wants to continue the original plan, but after seeing how deadly it is, Maxim argues they should come up with another plan. He says they should aim for the center, where the signal originates, instead of trying to destroy one by one and lose a lot of people. Zeph then reveals to him that the towers are not just for identifying rebels. He explains that there is another radiation that is always active, which is the one that is actually brainwashing people. So even if the rebels manage to take out the center, the towers will be able to send the signal, that brainwashes the people. Zeph also reveals that the mutants are also unaffected by the radiation, but they are not friendly to humans, so they don't know how to make an alliance. Suddenly, they hear a sound of an engine. Zeph realizes it is a self-driving tank that is coming for them. Zeph and the other prisoners then try to hide, but the tank starts shooting in their direction. Knowing they don't have much time, Maxim gets up and runs directly at the tank. The tank then shoots at him, but the bullets miss. Maxim then jumps into the tank and disables it. He then activates the manual control and tells Zeph that he is going south to find people that can help them. Zeph wishes him luck, and Maxim travels to the border. He passes the first checkpoint because he was driving a military tank, but in the next checkpoint he is stopped, and the guards demand to see who is driving. To Maxim's luck, the soldier that is going to check is Guy, who has been demoted to this role. Guy goes in to see who it is, and as soon as he gets in, Maxim drives the tank and busts through the gate, and the movie ends as Maxim and Guy escape the soldiers. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.